Okay, we're going to start recording, and let's see how long this holds out. Dead Horses, episode 4. So,
Woo!
we're still alive.
Still alive, just, life gets in the way.
Oh my god, dude. Yeah. And this week we've got a special guest we dragged along with us. You can identify yourself or not identify yourself if you want to. It's up to you, man.
Ooh, can I just call him Thor, God of Lightning?
Well, if you're going to do that, he's got to keep the subterfuge the entire...
Companies are in Seattle.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that raising the minimum wage is a good start in that area, but it doesn't fix the problem. And the problem is the amount of housing needed for the population of that city isn't adequate enough.
Yeah.
Period. And as long as you're building these fucking luxury
condoms.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, that was beautiful.
I'm going to try to start.
This is like a Brazilian steakhouse. Where is the card that I flip over to red?
Obrigado. All right, so Take 2, episode 4, Dead Horses. I just updated OBS. Let's just fucking go for it.
All
so
right.
far, so good. And it's not crashing
fucking
either.
Sucks. We're doing it live.
We're doing it live. Yeah, well, I mean, we're not on Twitch, which is probably for the best because I don't want to get hacks banned already. But so far, it's doing really good, and it's also the mics are a lot more responsive. Everything just looks good. So
I mean, I could take my shirt off if it gets us more views.
Well, if you're gonna do that, let me transition over to you. All right, your face, it'll be on the internet. There you go. All right, back to logo. Dead Horses.
Please,
oh no! Why do you do this? Why? Okay, wait. I'm gonna ride out the storm. All right, let's see if it'll work. I feel like Homer Simpson following that pig flying through the air. It's still good.
Still good. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, take banana. We're going to start recording episode 4, Dead Horses. Maybe this time we'll get it right. So, we're live. There are 3 of us on this week's episode. Do we want to do introductions or just roll on through?
I think at this point we need to just roll on through because bad shit just keeps happening.
But that's part of what makes it fun, and also that's very meta for the whole 2020 thing, right?
And to be fair, I don't care who I am. No one else should care either.
That's a fair point. Cool. Okay, so far OBS hasn't died.
This is good.
Yeah. Okay, it looks like it shouldn't have any problems recording. Having said that, we'll see where it is in 3 minutes, right?
Man, I've heard that before.
Oh, wham bam, thank you, OBS.
So I believe you've got the agenda for the music industry and whatnot.
Oh yeah, we were going to talk mad shit about the music industry. Oh, that didn't take long.
OBS just shit.
Oh my god.
You can get sucked into the spiral and get ground up until there's nothing of you left.
Yeah. And that's an unfortunate thing that happens to a lot of people. Oh, and also I'm going to fucking try to record again because I did a different optimization. So let's just keep on going and see if I turn into a turnip or not.
Wait, we weren't recording?
Well, no, just now.
Oh, okay. Because I've been giving you gold, man.
Mm-hmm.
So no. Josh brings up an important thing where, I did security for a long time, and I've seen the cycles. Like when a company, when things are doing great, a company will put more money into security, but the second things are going bad, not for the company per se, but the economy, they will. That is like one of the first places they will start cutting. And I had to explain to guys that were younger than me that I'm like, look, man, right now, hey, things are going great. We're making a lot of money. But the second things change, the second the outside world goes bad, you're going to lose that. And they looked at me like, well, what do you mean? And we thought, like the good times are supposed to last forever. And I'm like, no, it doesn't happen that way. So what you need to do is go to school or find a job that is more stable, that will allow you to do the things that you want to do. This isn't it.
Yeah.
I was thinking about post-apocalyptic stories, and a lot of them go, oh, there was a war or some cataclysm and now everything sucks.
Some catalyst event happens. Yeah.
But now I'm wondering, like, what if it's just a gradual thing? Like, remember the movie Idiocracy?
Right. The boiling of frogs over hundreds of years. That's
exactly. It just gradually gets crappier and crappier. And at what point do you draw a line in the sand and say, okay, well, now it's post-apocalyptic, right? Because if you look at Idiocracy, or even if you look at the more recent Ghost in the Shell, where they depict America where buildings are literally falling over and they just kind of strap them together.
Well, in the Ghost in the Shell universe, America is pretty much in shambles.
Yeah,
it's been like that since the original manga.
And I'm just saying that they kind of, like the most recent Ghost in the Shell on Netflix, they actually visit America. And they visit America and they show it, and it literally looks like Idiocracy, where buildings have fallen over, and they just sort of strap them together to keep them from totally touching the ground.
Sick burn, bro.
And there's still a government. There's still a quote-unquote functioning government, but everything is in disrepair and everything is crap. And you still have your super wealthy people that live very comfortable lives.
So what you're telling me is it's like I-35.
Yeah, and exactly, where it's like there's just tents and people living homeless.
Oh my God, dude. So that, dude.
At what point do we draw a line in the sand and say we are living in a post-apocalyptic dystopia? Because what's going to happen is things are just going to dry up more and more. Less jobs, less jobs, less jobs. Yeah. More homeless people, more people living in ruins.
And living
at a certain point, and this isn't the world. It's just like different countries.
Right. Well, you can see that now in different. You can see that now in different countries too, and like the picture you were painting reminded me immediately of what California was like. I think it was probably anywhere from 2006 to 2008, just before the big financial apocalypse. I visited a friend of mine, and it was during a time where there were tent cities being built on Arnold Schwarzenegger's lawn because he was the governor at the time. Because a bunch of people were losing jobs, they had nowhere else to go, so they just literally set up camp in the middle of Sacramento. And I remember driving past I-35 and seeing, essentially the worst form of Portlandia happen. Where people are setting up tents and living in these new REI tents because they're the new homeless.
Yeah. As a result of it, took the rich and the powerful by surprise. And that's why you had that American dream in the 50s that was possible. The fact that the people who, the fact that the baby boomers, off the backs of their parents, made far more money than their parents ever did, had better lives than their parents ever did, and then flushed it down the drain for everyone else.
Right.
But the rich and the powerful went, wait a second, that's ours, and have been working to figure out ways to get that money back. And here we are in our present situation, where when you talk about, don't you think the rich should be taxed, or even just be made to pay the taxes that they find loopholes
preposterous.
Well, no, and you see people that are making 30, 40, 50,000 a year go I don't think it's right to take their money, and I'm
ridiculous, dude.
The fact that they're defending it, and I understand that there's an issue of morality there, but let's look at the other issue. The fact of the matter is, these billionaires that are making money off the stock
now trillionaires too.
Well, millionaires and trillionaires, billionaires and trillionaires that are making money off the stock market don't do anything with that money except make more money off the stock market.
Well, they're the dragons. In essence, they're dragons on a pile of gold.
Like we've had this talk. They're a dragon. And that money isn't going into the economy. So while you say, oh, look, we have all this money in our country, it's not being used.
Right, it's stagnant.
And what's worse is because there's this mentality of, if you're rich, then that means that you are smarter and better than everyone else.
Of course.
So now your voice has way more weight and influence than the voices of other people, because, hey, well, he's a billionaire, so he obviously has got it all figured out.
Well, and also because corporations are people too, like you can literally just buy clout.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can control the lawmakers, or at the very least influence them greatly. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And not just influence lawmakers, but like affect the law enforcement. You know, like when you look at what happened with Jeffrey Epstein, where everyone basically knew what was going on.
Yeah, it was a very open secret. Yeah.
But no one could bring him to justice, because anytime you tried, even the police that were like, this guy is horrible and we need to bring him to justice, then you had the attorneys and the attorney generals. Attorneys general.
There you go.
Attorney generals.
Come in and basically go, no, we're not going to prosecute this guy.
Right.
He has connections.
Well, there's too much implication involved because of all of his connections. It looks bad. It's bad optics, as we've said before.
And so what you end up getting is people that are rich and powerful live in a different world than the rest of us, where the laws apply to them differently.
Yeah, it's 2-tier laws.
everything applies to them differently, and then people worship them like they're a freaking demigod. And they're not.
Well, you can't say that. Also, I want to let you guys know we are recording, and so far it's stable.
Yay.
So after a lot of tinkering, this video was brought to you by OBS. Oh my fucking god, OBS. Please don't crash this time.
The unfortunate thing with human beings, because we're a flawed, stupid creature, is we look at people who are wealthy, we look at people that are athletic, and we look at people that are,
that just have the biggest dicks. The biggest dicks.
Biggest dicks too. And because those are such positive traits or positive things in our society,
they're perceived as positive traits.
They're perceived as positive traits in our society.
Yeah.
We also heap on other traits. Well, that person's beautiful, so obviously they're good-hearted, they're moral.
Right.
Well, that person's rich, so they're not a bad person. They do the right thing.
Yeah.
And that colors the perception of your average person who gives these traits, these attributes, and it just starts ballooning. These people wouldn't do a bad thing. Why wouldn't they?
Well, if you learn by memes, that's all. There's no real discussion there.
And this is true, and that is part of the problem of today, is the fact that the manner in which most people choose to get their news or their information doesn't really teach them anything. It's in one ear, out the other, because I'm already on to the next thing.
Right. You don't have enough brain. You don't have enough bandwidth.
Dip into philosophy, because I was talking about it's not about morality, it's just about shareholder price.
Right.
Which brings up the question of do the ends justify the means?
Do the ends justify the memes?
If you have to do all of this horrible stuff, and at the end of the day you can go, oh, well, it's okay that this company did all of these horrendous things, because look how much money they brought into the economy. Look how much money, how many jobs that they created, and how much other stuff. We're just going to ignore the fact that they created all of this misery too.
Well, it's like DuPont, because they poisoned communities, and essentially everyone has some Teflon in their bloodstream. So hey, yeah, that's good times.
If you ask that question of evangelical Christians in America, the answer is yes.
I really wish they were called Evangelion Christians. I could get behind that.
But no, seriously, is they basically decided that no matter what they were actually taught,
Yeah.
Or what is actually written in this book that is so important to them.
Yeah.
The
ones they don't read?
The ones that they don't read. The ends do justify the means.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what I have to do.
It gets even more disturbing when you talk about the was it the prosperity gospel?
Yes.
Prosperity theology.
Yes, Queen. Yes.
Which is if you are favored by God, then you will have money. So from that perspective, then anyone that has money
is favored by God.
Is favored by God.
Yeah.
So anyone that's got millions of dollars, billions of dollars, well, obviously they can't be bad.
Right.
Because otherwise God would make them poor.
Because God thinks they're hot, so they're obviously hot.
So the converse, the opposite of that idea, or the flip side of that is and I remember not so much being taught, but this being the understood attitude. Well, if God loved you, you would have stuff.
Yeah.
God doesn't love you because you don't have stuff. Therefore, we know God doesn't love you. And poor people living in poverty, were looked down on.
Yeah,
because they were poor, and still are looked down on because of this idea in the church.
Yeah.
And it's never said specific. We don't shame the poor, but if God loved you, you would have to say, OBS shit the bed again.
Nope, it actually recovered. It pulled up and pulled out.
Doesn't sound manly to me.
So far, so good, gents. So far, so good.
Okay, so to go back to the whole music thing.
Yeah. I'll be able to splice a full episode together based on these bits that I've been able to record.
So, that's the charm of our podcast. We call it Dead Horses, but I made the joke of a carousel of dead horses. And our podcast goes around like a carousel. Eventually we get back to the original idea.
Well, that's what I want us to get to, which is why I'm going to add different heads and different screenshots as we go along, because we got that original field of dead horses, which was literally a field of dead horses.
Yes.
And then we've got Maslow in the upper left-hand corner and the Ford Pinto in the upper right-hand corner, and we're going to add other things as we talk about different people and different topics.
One of the things that me and Edward were talking about, and this may have been a post dead horse conversation, is the idea of, or not the idea, but before Napster, you really didn't have a chance other than the radio or a few music stores. And they were chains that you could listen to a part of a CD, or some songs before you bought.
Sam Goody. Yeah,
Sam Goody.
Way back in the day.
Way back in the day. And the fact that CDs were just arbitrarily set at $15, $16 a pop. And
30 when they came out.
I know, wasn't that crazy?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I ran into the situation where I would buy an album because I really liked a song or two on there, and the rest were just shit. Absolute shit.
Yeah. The filler tracks.
The filler tracks.
Yeah.
And, I'm like, it's no wonder Napster came about. And Napster didn't come about because people wanted free music. They wanted to steal. It's because the music company's distribution was bullshit.
Yeah.
It was just absolute garbage.
You weren't meeting customers where they were, and that was the problem because everything was going more and more digital. And, again, going back to the entire Gibson book, Burning Chrome, the streets find a way. People were going to do it whether you think it's legal or not, and then that became the future because of Napster and other
the
people.
Thing is Napster showed the music industry that, hey, there is a way that our customers would prefer.
Yeah.
We sell these things, which gave rise to
digital distribution, all that.
Digital distribution.
Yeah.
Which the companies never would have done had it not been for Napster.
Right. Right.
And additionally, just a little side tangent, also computing power got to the point where you could there were codecs that allowed you to compress music to be smaller.
Which is what I did in this podcast to finally get it right. Change fucking codecs.
And still sound decent because I remember, right before Napster came out or whatever, your audio files on a computer would be like an uncompressed WAV file, and it was not possible to download songs in that format, much less listen to them.
Well, I mean, you could have one song, but if one song is an entire CD, there's no value to that.
Yeah, and you know, and then I remembered when these audio codecs started coming out that allowed you to compress a file.
MP2, like that changed everything for
Yeah,
me.
you went from being able to
MP2.
have like one song would be take up your entire hard drive to, oh, well, now I could fit a whole bunch of songs on a hard drive.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
but my computer wasn't quite powerful enough
I
to run
know.
the codec real time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then, you know, computing power progressed to the point where it's like, man, I'm able to grab like a whole bunch of songs and put them on one hard drive and I can listen to them and it's great. And now it's starting to get portable. And
Yeah.
then kind of Napster popped up at that time, which is like, and now you could just download people's
Everything.
entire music collections. People were just encoding all of the CDs that they have. I still have boxes of CDs,
Hmm.
and there came a point where I just no longer bought CDs anymore.
Yeah,
And so
aside from vinyl, I haven't bought any physical media, and I buy vinyl because I like to play vinyl and I like the artwork and all that. But legit, most of my music
which is
collection,
now
yeah,
exceeding the
I
sales
know.
of
I
CDs.
know, it's not hilarious. But like it's funny because aside from the vinyls that I get and I dive into because it's fun, most of my music purchases are device based.
Yeah.
It's all digital, just like most of my video games. Like almost all of my video games, whether it's console or PC, is going to be a digital download.
And recently, like there's some French artists that I like and some Japanese artists that I like that I literally cannot buy their music in
Unless it's
America.
digital. Yeah.
I have to either find it for sale digitally or try to find someone that will import their
I
stuff,
know. Oh, I
which
hate that
is
so much.
which
So
is
much.
crazy. And I know you kind of have like a in the agenda talking about albums versus singles,
Yeah.
but like
Okay.
in Japan, they seem to be doing a lot more singles and are shying away from albums, or they'll do something called a mini album, which is like just
Yeah.
4 songs,
Exactly. It's really just an EP, but it's like a promo EP where it
which
is really
makes
like
it
just four
even
singles.
harder because like I'm like, oh, I really like this song. Well, how do
Yeah.
I find it? Ew, it's not on any album.
It's not even
Oh,
a
it's just a
B-side.
single. Now
Yeah.
I've got to try to find some way of finding this one song.
It's crazy to think, but like Japan has been doing that probably since like the late 70s and 80s, where they have what is the Oricon charts or whatever it is,
Yeah.
where that's almost entirely singles based, and everything's come back around because American music, which is why I wanted to have this episode and kind of revisit this topic, is like American music was very singles focused back when the idea of popular music, which became pop music, came into the forte in America. So like from the 1940s onward, pop music really became how music was shared in America because before that time it was like folk music, like real folk music, people playing
Yeah.
guitars, singing for their supper type stuff. And then the age of
And
crooners came, and then we had real DJs and all of that, and singles started selling, and kids at sock hops and all that other crazy shit.
And you find some artists that seem to like they kind of strike it with one really successful song,
Right.
and then they just make remix album after remix album of that one song.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So here's one that really came into my mind. So I did DJ for a little while, a long time ago, and this will. Well, I mean, we're not young people anymore. I guess we have to admit that. I mean, we're old millennials at best. Um, but I remember when Whoop There It Is came out, and they had remix album after remix album after remix album. 95 South. Y'all are horrible, but you sold a lot of records because TGIF was a thing. And in the last waning days of ABC's TGIF lineup, you guys got so much fucking airplay. And Bob Saget, oh my god, Bob Saget pushed the fuck out of those guys. He pushed them to the moon. He was like a goddamn wrestling promoter for 95 South. He was essentially Paul Heyman for 95 South. Anyway,
Wow.
yeah, off the top rope type Bob Saget.
Mm. No, it you know
Whoop, there it is. I thought you knew.
the evolution of music, or the evolution of not just music in America, but the distribution of that music, has been changing since the 40s.
Oh yeah,
You know, and the fact that uh, the fact that the record industry in the 90s, was like, yeah, no, this is just the way it is, and refused to see that their model was no longer what the consumers wanted, and led to this huge fight. The RIA is still claiming that pirating is costing them X amount of money a year, which, I mean, yeah, sure, I will admit that. I will concede that yes, the recording industry probably does lose money to pirating, but that isn't the main cause for the industry not doing as well as it used to.
Yeah. And it's an interesting argument, the whole piracy. Does piracy cost? Because here's the test, right? If it was impossible to pirate, would the people that pirate actually have paid for the music or the movies or whatever it is that you were pirating, right?
No.
And in some cases, yeah, like, let's look at people that go to college and they have to buy textbooks. Well, yeah, if they couldn't pirate the textbooks, then they would buy the textbook because that's the only way they're going to get through college. But I think that there's some people that just would be like, well, then I'm just not going to college.
Yeah, but the thing is we're describing two different things here. That those college textbooks, that's more than likely a need. Like you have to have those in order to get through class. I don't need music. I don't need that movie. I don't need these things to survive. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, do I think that there are some people that probably would have bought those items if they couldn't pirate it? Sure. But I think the vast majority of us would just be like, yeah, no, I don't need that,
Yeah.
I maybe I am just incredibly naive or hopeful. I don't know.
Well, at the crossroads of hope and naivete, what are we left with?
Belle Delphine.
That is a hell of a transition. Actually, is that on the agenda this week?
I don't think it is.
Not.
No, but I guess it's more of a.
I mean, you've got fuck boys on the agenda.
Fuck boys are always on the agenda because fuck boys need to be beaten to death. So we talked about singles versus albums, other fuck boys. So we talked about Berry Gordy earlier, and I got most of that conversation recorded. But there are plenty of other fuck boys that have fucked artists over, and sometimes the artists fuck themselves over. Like I think about Guns N' Roses in particular, dude. How long did it take for Chinese Democracy to come out?
Oh shit! Was that a decade? Over a decade?
Probably, man.
It's the funny thing is that band is a perfect example of what happens when egos and just attitudes just cause self-destruction.
Yeah. Well, they did have the album called Appetite for Destruction, so I mean, there was truth in advertising, at least there.
This is true.
A good time to segue into Van Halen.
Oh shit! That's a pretty recent dead horse.
It is a dead horse.
I mean, my mom literally started crying when she heard.
Oh man, yeah, I they weren't really a part of my childhood or anything, but like Van Halen was always one of those groups that, because I was more into heavy metal and R&B and hip hop. And
heavy
I guess some pop music
R&B.
Too. Well, I mean, think about it. Like from my point of view, when I first came to America, there was it was an odd time because like I would watch different things and I was just trying to absorb American culture, and so whatever was in the popular mainstream was everything that I absorbed because I tried my best to not stick out like a sore thumb,
Yeah.
And I know that like even though I came here as an immigrant, I would want to believe that at a certain level my experiences were not dissimilar to other American children because. I mean, when you're a child, you don't really have enough self-awareness to say, "Hey, what should I be watching?" So I'd watch Gem, then I'd watch G.I. Joe, and to me, they were just one big ongoing stream of crazy entertainment. And the idea of gender and what guys should watch and girls should watch was never a question to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old me. I would just take whatever the stupid box gave me, and that was it.
Yeah. A raw slurry of entertainment pouring
America.
into your face.
Yeah, exactly. It was the American pop culture slurry, and I needed to learn it because if I didn't, I would be that social outcast. It didn't work out the way I thought it was going to. I'll say that right now, but but I learned a lot about American culture, and I won't say that I regret it, but I find that I probably related more to American culture from the 1940s and 50s than I did culture in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s and onwards, which is why I go back to the idea of dead horses, because all of this, like, I see repeating patterns, you know? None of this is new.
What's wild, you say you related more to the culture of the 40s,
Yeah.
but you relate to the ideal
Exactly.
of the culture of the 40s.
Because that's what you bring forward, which is why you don't see like the frumpy, you know, downtrodden workers in the 40s. You see iconic figures like all the film noir characters. You know, you see the beauty and grandeur of Casablanca. You don't see that poor guy who's, you know, shaking tins and just trying to make ends meet.
People forget in the 40s in America, almost everyone was doing a lot of drugs.
Oh yeah, it was great. Like that actually kind of shows up in a lot of the media too, which I thought was also gorgeous, but it's also really depressing.
Yet, and so it was just it's not remarked on. Like people did a lot of drugs in the 70s. Well, that's because it was illegal, and there was like kind of they started to kind of say, oh well, all the liberal people are doing drugs, so we're going to start vilifying
bad faith argument.
Drugs.
Yeah.
So it gives us an excuse to get rid of all these this liberal political movement.
Right. And it worked out pretty well.
In the 40s, everyone was doing drugs, regardless of your place on the political spectrum. And so it wasn't made into a big deal. It's just like, oh, everyone's on cocaine and lithium and all these other drugs.
I'm going to build a wormhole between the 1940s and the 1980s real quick. What you're telling me effectively is it was acceptable in the 40s. And what you're telling me effectively is it was acceptable in the 80s.
Yeah. It was acceptable at the time.
Exactly.
Such a great song.
And that's why I say, like, I can't get away from the general overarching theme of dead horses, because we're always talking about the same thing. Like, if we could somehow hop in our time machine and have a guest on the show from earlier time periods, they would be able to hop in pretty quick and have contemporary conversations with us, even though they might be 70, 80, 120 years removed from our current moment.
Well, I mean, life works in circles, right? Like your circulatory system is circulating everything.
Yeah.
You know, the birth, reproduction, death cycle is a circle.
Yeah.
And you know, we were talking about music, where you go from you're buying physical copies of music to now you're pirating stuff. The industry catches up.
That's true.
The industry catches up, and you start buying digital copies of stuff instead of pirating it.
Yeah.
And now we're back to buying physical copies of vinyl. It's a circle. You know, if you look at TV, people were watching TV, which was broadcast on radio and paid for by advertising promotion.
Yeah.
And then that got turned into doing cable stuff, where you would pay a lot of money to get all these different channels bundled together. And then everyone fled from that and started doing these streaming services. Right. But now there's so many streaming services that they're bundling them together, just like they bundled together with cable.
I know.
It's a big circle.
We're following into this again, and I'm holding up in front of my camera, waiting for it to... I don't know if it'll actually show my camera or not. I'll try to force it on the recording. I'll pin myself to the screen. Yeah, so like Lost, going back and thinking about these things, we're all stuck in a hatch of our own creation, and all we've really got is these odd moments where nostalgia is kind of in a blender, and I don't know which way is up anymore.
Although that leads to the question that if everything is a circle, are we ever going to change? Do we ever really evolve? Do we get past this? Or are we going to just be stuck in the same fucking circle jerk?
Well, like when you think about it, like Buddhist philosophy. So we should probably go there too, because the entire goal is to break out of that circle, break off of that mortal coil.
Yeah.
And there's a limitation of language. Circle may be a bad term, because it makes you think, oh, when you go around the circle, you're back where you started, right?
Right, but why do we keep on saying revolution?
You know, it's more like a spiral. Right?
Yeah, it can be a downward spiral at times.
You're in a different place than you were, even though you've basically made a rotation. Like if you go well, the planets are in these elliptical orbits. They always wind up where they were. Well, that's not necessarily true because the entire solar system is doing a spiral corkscrew kind of path around the galaxy.
So what you're saying is it's not just about me, is it? You whore.
Yeah, like, there's the joke about, like, if you take a time machine and you go back in time, you basically just pop up in a vacuum because the planet is not there.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
You would need to be able to magically move through time and space.
Yeah.
Because not only is the planet moving around the sun, but the sun is also moving around the galactic core.
Right.
And everything is going in spirals. And
there are so many variables. Yeah.
If you lock the camera perspective, it looks like a circle. But if you zoom out far enough, you'll see it's actually a spiral.
Or it's just Belle Delphine's all the way down.
Yeah, that's right. The Earth is flat, and it's on the back of Belle Delphine. Four Belle Delphines hold up the flat Earth.
Oh boy. This entire time. So what you've essentially said is the plot to the next Shin Megami Tensei game, coming out on Switch, hopefully before the end of this century.
I apologize to the audience for spoiling the plot.
But the plot thickens, doesn't it?
All right. Did we hit everything on the...
Oh, not even close, but we never do.
We never do. Like, we have to eventually just call it, let the horse die, and then come back next week. And Josh, since this is your first episode in, you get to give us the call out. So you get to do a quote, and we will count it down from there and hopefully reconvene next week.
Wait, a quote?
Yeah, just make up a quote.
Or a pithy saying.
Yeah, like a limerick. It can be kind of like we did back in the day where we had that book of haikus. Like the entire thing is to, bring a little bit of wisdom to things. And it can't end on a bad note, or at least it shouldn't.
I mean, because the first thing that comes to mind is telling a joke that I heard earlier this week.
Well, I mean, it's better that you take it. You should tell a joke, because the only thing that's coming to mind for me is Snoop Dogg's phrase, "Bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks," which... That'll be one of the ways we close out this show, but not today.
Yeah. So I heard this joke earlier this week where a man's brought into a police station having killed 11 people. And they sit him down and start to interrogate him, trying to find out why did he do this. And they're like, what happened? And he goes, well, I was driving my car and my brakes failed. And listen, I'm not heartless. Like my choice was either to swerve into a group of 10 people or to swerve and hit one person. And I thought it was less evil to hit the one person. And they were like, that sounds reasonable, but how come you killed 11? He goes, well, he ran into the group.
That is the best. So I'm glad that we brought you on, because that is the best Dead Horses send-off I could hope for. And this is episode number 4, the number for death. You, my good man, have done a fantastic job.
Yay, I did a thing.
You did a thing.
All the technical difficulties that we had.
Jesus Christ. So this is going to be our Frankenstein episode, which is appropriate for October. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the recording here.